everyone and welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this pendant that I designed from the materials that came in the Stonehenge Ancient Ruins collection by Eureka Crystal Beads, which was a collaboration with Stephanie from Bronze Pony. I will link to that collection down below, and if it is sold out, you can still get your hands on a lot of these types of materials at Eureka Crystal Beads. If you scroll down on the collections page, it'll also show you exactly what comes in there and brings you to those products individually. This star that shows the 16mm cushion cut crystal, which is just gorgeous. We're going to be creating a beaded bezel for that using some 11/0 and 15/0 seed beads, some 2-hole Nib-Bit beads at the corner, also some 3mm round beads, and there's a flip over so you can see what the back looks like, and the sides, how they have those 3mm pearls in this case wrapping around that crystal. And I really like how they pick up the pearls in the main part of the necklace, so you can get really creative with that and coordinate your beads with whatever you want to string onto your necklace. In addition to that, I have a crystal round that is located right underneath the bail, and you can use pretty much anything there that you would like to, whether it's a bicone or some other type of shape. And I happen to be looking through my bead soup container and found a check glass bicone that I'll be using for the example piece that we'll be making today to pull that one all together. So also down below, I will have the full list of materials, everything you'll need to make one of these pendants, and some links to go along with those. And I plan to be back for a future tutorial to show you how to make some coordinating earrings using some 12mm size cushion cut crystals. So if you're pulling together materials and you're already planning to make some earrings to go along with your pendant, you'll be using pretty much the same materials except for the 12mm crystal size. For my beading thread today, I'll be using the 0.006 inch diameter or 6-pound Fireline, and my beading needle is a size 11, which I recommend because you will be passing through some 15/0 seed beads a couple of times. And at this point we can get right into it, so just gather up your materials if you're making this one along with me. Thread your beading needle with a comfortable length of beading thread, and we will jump into this tutorial. Alright, we're going to start out by picking up one of our Nib-Bit beads going through the short side, and then we're going to pick up 6 of our 11/0 seed beads. And you're going to repeat this sequence 4 times. So once again, a Nib-Bit bead and 6 more 11/0s. And you can pull those beads down once you have them on your thread and leave yourself about a 4 to 6 inch tail that we'll be weaving back in. And with your needle, just take that and sew back through all of those beads one more time. You're more than welcome to use a stop bead if you're more comfortable, but I'll show you how I go ahead and do that without one. I'm going to hold the tail thread and my beadwork in my other hand and continue sewing through all those beads, making sure I don't miss any. We're just bringing these beads together into a loop to get us started. And we're beginning by working on the back of our bezel. So when you've gone through all the beads, also go through one more, which will be your Nib-Bit bead. That will complete your loop. And we start out with something like this. Now just to tack that down a little bit, I like to go under the thread bridge right there next to the Nib-Bit and the first seed bead, make a loop, and then sew through the loop to make a half-hitch knot, and pull that down and secure it right next to that Nib-Bit bead. At this point, let's sew through our next 4 seed beads and pull that all together. And we're going to bring these sections of seed beads together a little bit more with our next step. And at this point, we're going to be picking up 3 11/0s. And then if you look over to your next section of seed beads, we have our 6. We want to go through the central 2. So skip 2 and then go through the next 2. and pull. And then do that 3 more times. So 3 11-ohs. Skip the first 2 seed beads in the next section and sew through the next 2. And we'll do that 2 more times now. And on our last one, we're just going to go through those 2 that we would normally go through. And you can actually continue through those next 3, the new ones that we had added. Pull that all together at this point. And we start out with something like this that's going to be on the back of our bezel. Now what I'm going to do is put a needle on the tail thread, and I'm going to weave that back into the beadwork a little bit and trim off the excess. That way it's out of the way for the tutorial. So I'll do that and I will be right back. Now with our working thread coming out of these 3 seed beads here, which are sitting in front of that Nib-Bit, we're going to continue sewing through the next 3. And we're going to proceed through just the new seed beads that we added in the previous step. And that's going to tighten those into a square shape. And just pull this tight as you go. I'm going to go around again, holding that together, going through the next 3 and then pulling and repeating that all the way around. And now let's continue up through the seed beads going to the side of the next Nib-Bit and pull that. Then go through the Nib-Bit bead, the shorter side. And here we want to step up. So now we can go up through the wider side there to begin our next step. Now you can pick up 6 of your 11-ohs and sew through the next Nib-Bit bead, going through that wider end. And repeat that all the way around. So 6 more 11-ohs. And through the Nib-Bit bead. And when you get to your last one, just be coming out of that next Nib-Bit bead only. And we can pull in some of our 15-ohs at this point. We're going to refine this area a little bit. We're going to pick up 1 15-oh, then sew through the next 6 new seed beads. Pick up a 15-oh and then sew through the Nib-Bit bead. So we're just adding in a 15-oh before and after each Nib-Bit and around those new seed bead sections. And you just want those to click into place, so pull those tight after each addition. Picking up another 15-oh, sewing through the next 6 11-ohs, pull it in place, and do that again, this time just going through the Nib-Bit bead. And we have one more to go, and we'll just go through the Nib-It bead at the end. Give that one final pull to make sure it's nice and tight, and that's what we have so far. And now we can bring in some of our 3mm round beads. Let's first pick up one of our 15-0s, and then pick up 3 of your round beads, and one more 15-0. Next, sew through the wide end of the next Nib-It bead and pull those beads down, and they're going to sit just to the side like that, and they're going to end up wrapping around the sides of your crystal. So we'll repeat that 3 more times. 1 15-0, 3 of our rounds, and one more 15-0. And then sew through the next Nib-It bead. So now you should have something that looks like this. And now sew through your next new 15-0 and the following 3 round beads and your next 15-0. And we're going to add in 4 more Nib-It beads directly on top of the 4 that are already in place. So let's sew through another Nib-It bead going through the wider end. And then sew through one of your new 15-0s and the next 3 rounds and the next new 15-0. And pull. And you're just starting to get these in place, so they'll be loosely in place. They may be flipped in different directions, and that's okay. It'll tighten up as we go. Now in place there again, let's pick up another Nib-It bead through the wide side. And then sew through the next 15-0, 3 round beads, and the next 15-0. And let's do that, adding in our next 2 Nib-Its. Now I'm going to continue sewing through the next 15-0, get over to that first new Nib-It bead going through the wide end, and I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to step up through the narrow end of that same Nib-It bead, and now I'll be going in the other direction. You can start to just point those inwards so that the beads are matching up with the ones directly below them. And they're going to act as some prongs to fasten the crystal in place, which will tighten up around the front of it as we go. Let's just loosely pop in this crystal so that we can start tightening up some beads around it. And you want to have the crystal sitting so that the corners of it match up with the 4 Nib-It beads. So make sure it's sitting just like that. And we're going to start out by picking up 1 15-0, 5 11-0s, and 1 15-0. Sew through the next Nib-It bead, shorter side, and pull. And again, this will be loose until we complete some more rounds of beads and secure it into place. Just focus on getting these materials in the correct location. So 115-0, 5 11-0s, and 115-0. And repeat what we just did. Sew through the next Nib-Bit bead going through that more narrow side and starting to train those to sit at the corners of the cushion cut crystal. We'll pick up our 15-0, 5 11-0s, and 115-0, and go through the next one. And just continue to pull this as you go. Got one more section. And going through the next Nib-Bit bead. And now just holding this together like a sandwich, just go through all those beads again to start to reinforce this section on top of the crystal, going through your seed beads and then through the Nib-Bit and pulling after each pass around the stone. And once that feels reinforced, you've gone through it a couple of times, is what I'd recommend. Be coming out of one of your Nib-Bit beads and then step up going through the wider end of that same Nib-Bit. Now we're going to be adding another row of seed beads in this next section. And we're going to pick up a 15-0, 6 11-0s, and 1 15-0. Then sew through the next Nib-Bit bead going through that wider end, and repeat that 3 more times. So 1 15-0, 6 11-0s, and 1 15-0, and sew through the next Nib-Bit bead. And now I recommend just sewing through that round of beads again at least one more time to reinforce this section. Going through all those new seed beads and the Nib-Bit beads again. So here's what your piece should be looking like so far. And I'm coming out of the Nib-Bit bead right here out of the wider end of this upper one. And we're just going to bring those Nib-Bits together a little bit more at the corners. So right here, let's pick up 3 15-0s and then go down through the wide end of the Nib-Bit bead directly below. And you can just go through the Nib-Bit bead. You don't have to go through the 15-0s that are on either side. Pick up 3 more 15-0s and then return through the Nib-Bit bead on the top. And you can also start going through the next seed beads that you get to in order to make your way over to your next Nib-Bit bead. and you'll want to exit from that one. And once again, pick up 3 15-0s, then sew through the Nib-Bit bead directly below. Pick up 3 more 15-0s, and then sew through the Nib-Bit bead at the top. And you can continue sewing through the next seed beads. And that's just finishing off those corners a little bit more. And we'll do that 2 more times. So your piece should be looking like this, and there's one other thing that you can do just to tidy this up a little bit more. Coming out of this Nib-Bit bead at the top, I'm going to go down through those 3 new seed beads, the 15-0s, and then I'm going to sew directly through the 3 round beads and pull. Then sew up through the next new 15-0s, those 3. Head over through the Nib-Bit bead, back down through these new 3 15-0s. I'm just pulling this tight after each pass. Now sew over through these 3 rounds, just kind of straightening up and squaring off these edges a little bit more. Through the next Nib-Bit, down through those 3, over, and up through these, over, and down, and over again. At this point, we can start working on a simple bail for our piece. And I'm going to go down through those 3 seed beads that are to the side of that Nib-Bit, and then pick up 4 of my 11-0s, and then head up through the 3 15-0s on the other side. So we're just adding those 4 11-0s into place right there. It's going to be the base of our bail, and we are going to also sew now through the next Nib-Bit bead, back through the 3 15-0s on this side, and then sew up through the first 11-0 that we just added. Now pick up 3 of your 15-0s, and then pick up whatever bead you want to use to be decorative on top of this piece. Again, this is just something I found in my bead soup container. It's more like a 6mm size, and in the other piece I just used a 4mm crystal round, but either way will work. Then pick up 8 of your 11-0s and return down through that decorative bead. So you've made 1 loop, and pull that together. Then pick up 3 more 15-0s, and those will sit on the other side. And then you can pass down through that last 11-0 in that group of 4 that we added underneath the bail section. And then return through those 15-0s again, through the Nib-Bit, through the next 3 15-ohs. And go up the first 11-oh on the bail portion, as well as the next 3 15-ohs, and be coming out of your decorative bead again. And I just did a series of 3 loops just like the first one. So again, picking up 8 11-ohs. And then sewing back down the decorative bead again. And just puts another loop right next to the first one. And you're welcome to leave it there and end it at this point, or you can add a third loop like I did on the example piece. This time I'm going to go down through those 3 15-ohs and then over through the next 2 11-ohs and head up through these 3 15-ohs underneath the decorative bead. We can go up through that bead again to add a third loop of 8 11-ohs. Passing down through the decorative bead again, and you can go down through the next 3 seed beads, and then through the next 2 11-ohs. And then I just did one other thing to bring the loops of 11-ohs together. Just going up through the decorative bead first of all to get my needle positioned up there. What I did was just go through the first 3 seed beads of the middle loop. Then I'll go down through the 2 seed beads next to that on the third loop. Go back up through the next 2 on the middle. Sew through the corresponding 2 on the first loop. Back up through these 2 in the middle. And this time back down through the 3 on that first loop. And that just got those seed beads to come together a little bit more. I'm also going to go up through the next 3 that are towards the back and actually up through the 4th one. And I'll pick up a 15-oh and go down through the next 4. Then I'll go up through the next 4 on the center section, pick up a 15-oh, flip this over and go down through the 4 towards the back. Then sew up through the 4 on the back of this loop, pick up a 15-oh, and sew down through the 4 on the front. And then you can just sew down through that decorative bead and weave in your working thread and knot and trim off the excess, and you are done with your piece. And that wraps it up for this tutorial. I do want to mention that depending on the brand of seed beads, if yours are a little bit larger or smaller, you can adjust the number of seed beads that go around the top of your crystal accordingly. And in the example used from the Stonehenge collection by Eureka Crystal Beads, I didn't actually add the 15-ohs around all of these seed beads going around the front, so you can play around with that and see what fits your piece the best. And that wraps it up for today's tutorial. I want to thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed making this piece. And be sure to subscribe while you're here if you haven't already, because like I said, I will be back to show you how to make the coordinating earrings. As a reminder, the links to everything you'll need and the full list of materials will be listed right down below the video in the description section, so be sure to check that out. Also, if you plan to make this or if you have made it, feel free to leave a comment down below because I always love to hear about it. Before you go, be sure to give the video a big thumbs up and hit that share button to share this tutorial with your other beading friends, such as your favorite beading groups on Facebook. Until next time, I want to wish you a fabulous rest of your day. I hope to see you all again real soon, and until next time, happy beading!